This session is called Burning the Bread Basket, Wider Impact of Russia's Aggression in Ukraine. And it's my great honor and privilege to introduce my speakers here. Eduard Heger, Prime Minister of Slovakia.
Thank you. Hello.
And Karl Nehammer, Austrian Chancellor.
Thank you.
Prime Minister, let me start with you. What are the most urgent issues that you think are here on the agenda to solve as of now, as of 100 days since the war?
Well, we heard yesterday from the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, that first of all they need the help with the weapons to protect themselves. But the very second important issue is the grain that they have in Ukraine, and it is blocked, is stocked. That's what also Ursula von der Leyen was speaking about. And that we have to very quickly deliver to the other parts of the world, because otherwise we are facing a great famine. And to me, this is, we haven't thought of this at the beginning when Putin started the aggression. We saw the impact on Ukraine, then we started immediately to feel the impact on the European Union. But now we see how he's actually, I would say, terrorizing the people in other parts of the world who have nothing to do with this war, and actually putting them into the threat of a great famine, which could then cause a great migration wave, etc., great instability. So that's why we have to act very quickly. And its first priority is to help the Ukrainians secure the ports at the sea, so they could start to export it on the boats, on the vessels, because we know that even the trains, if we put in operation, will not be able in the same time to export the grain over the green routes.
What's your take on that? When it comes to Europe, this is also slightly different, because of course we have heard already when it comes to the food crisis and food security, we've heard the stark warnings by the UN about this food crisis that may last for years if this is not solved now and not tackled. But also we have heard from the beginning of April by the European Union saying that for the moment the EU is largely self-sufficient for food. But here it is, for the moment.
I think what we need now is to bring out the wheat from Ukraine. So, for example, the UN General Secretary started now 2 missions to help to build up safe corridors to bring the corn out. And, for example, President Putin guaranteed in the phone call that the Russian military will not attack any transport of corn. So, you know, we have the harbor of Odessa, for example, it is mined. And he told me now the Ukrainians have to clear the mines. And I told him, yeah, it's a good idea, but you have to guarantee that not the Russian armed forces attack the harbor of Odessa. He told me, well, he will guarantee that, but you know, that are only words. We don't know if it's true or not. So I think we need the United Nations now in this question, because maybe in the future there will be a possibility to free the harbors, but now we have to bring out the seeds, the wheat, the corn.
How can we secure somehow the instant solution now, but also the one that would work, okay, not in a long term, because infrastructure is a different conversation, of course, when it comes to rail deliveries. But let's say in a month, in 6 months, for the next grains, for the next harvest.
The first thing is, if we secure the ports, let's say Odessa and others, and we'll be able to find a solution where we will have Russians on one side, Ukrainians on the other side, and getting the exports out, that gives a good hope that we'll be able to secure also the territory inside, that the renewal could start and the planting of the new harvest is also ready, etc. Because this will be the task to have, since they are breadbasket. They are. And these are higher priorities than the national priorities. So I think we have to emphasize also to Vladimir Putin, he must understand that these are global priorities. And the pressure of the countries of this global issue must be there. We must be united and say, you are causing too much, so free out the way. For securing the food for the rest of the world. And then, this is the second step, and then we can speak about, okay, let's rebuild Let's rebuild the infrastructure in Ukraine, because we don't want this country to die in front of our eyes because it doesn't have enough resources, it cannot be self-running, etc.
Why do African governments remain neutral in the aggression against Ukraine when they suffer most from the food blockage? Would that help, and how would that help if African countries also gotten on board with the wider solutions when it comes also to sanctions and whatever they can be involved with in finding solutions to that, Chancellor?
It's really a very good question, because we have to accept that we have strongly opinion in the so-called Western world, but not in the rest of the world, and this rest of the world is huge. We talk about China, we talk about India, we talk about Africa. So what we have to do now is to find allies. And we have to convince them, and we have to protect them as well. We talked about corn, the export of corn from Ukraine, or wheat. We didn't talk about fertilizers. It's a very important question. When we were in the council in Brussels, we met there also in a video conference the president now of the African Union. And the president told us they need fertilizers.
We'll have to attract also the other global partners and say, you must get on the board, because if you're not part of it, if India is not part of the solution, if the United States is not part of the solution, if the African countries are not part of the solutions, then we will not have the solution. Especially because food crisis is a first stage of then security crisis, world security crisis. And we don't want that. So that's why we have to get them on board. And I think that will help why they will get on board.
When the war started against Ukraine, the solidarity in Europe was really strong. And I think in the first time we really showed unity against the Russian aggression. But the world watched us in this moment. And African states say, interesting, if something happens in Europe, you live solidarity, you stay strong. We had so many crises in Africa the years before. Where have you been? What does a life count in comparison in Africa to Europe? And I think we have to think about that. The reason why they don't support is because they say, now you are coming, now you want us to support the sanctions against the Russian Federation. But we need also the Russian corn, so why shall we do that? We need the Russian fertilizers, so why shall we do that? I think we have to show our interest to their continent in a way so that they can believe us.
Now we say to the countries around us, if they want to join us, they will have to reform themselves. But we see with these global challenges that there will have to be reforms of the global organizations and approach. Because what Karl just said, the countries from other continents are asking why you weren't behaving like this when we were in trouble. And that's a very fair question, because if we are those who honor democracy and honor the values of freedom, rule of law, etc., justice, just and fair treatment, then they ask, so how can you be faithful to a fair treatment and not acting fair to everybody?
In the early days of Russian invasion, when it comes to weaponizing things, there was Russia's energy. We talked about weaponizing energy as a leverage by Russia. Now the question by Henrik, is Putin weaponizing food? Syria, Lebanon, Egypt are most dependent on grain from Ukraine and Russia. Could the food shortage lead to a new wave of refugees? Is this weaponizing food?
Well, he's weaponizing everything. I mean, look, before he was weaponizing the food, he's weaponizing information. Because look how hybrid warfare is conducted in Slovakia, in other countries on the eastern flank. I mean, so many disinformation, so many hoaxes we didn't face like we did in the last couple of months. So yeah, he's weaponizing, and he will weaponize anything that he's capable of to disrupt us, to disunite us, because that's his only tool that he has at this moment. He doesn't have as strong military as everybody thought, and maybe as he thought, so he cannot defeat Ukraine as quickly as he thought. So he will add every mean tool to gain progress. But for us, it shouldn't be we shouldn't be afraid of it, because I think we are so strong. We just have to understand on what principles we have to work toward it, and looking for solutions. And just look at Finland and Sweden and Denmark. What happened over the last couple of weeks? I mean, we wouldn't be able to have these decisions on their security if not for this. So we see that even though we don't like it and we don't think it's right, this aggression, but it's actually activating a post-process that we were not willing, we didn't have the courage to do. And this gives us great hope of, if we follow the same principles, that we'll be able to achieve. And the food, as we were discussing, there is solutions to it. But we need more partners, because the port of Odessa will be a great training for us, whether we are capable to secure the security of Ukraine and at the same time allow the Ukrainians to export. If we achieve this, this is a big step forward. But we'll need other partners into this who will secure the waters of the sea.
The question from Alexandra Brozovsky, apologies if I mispronounced the name. Question to both speakers. Putin will ask a price for unblocking the Black Sea ports. Would you be ready to lift EU sanctions in exchange, as he asked? Chancellor, you had a call recently with Vladimir Putin, and you said that Putin was entirely aware of the issue of food security, also saying that he was giving signals, he was ready to allow some exports over seaports, but that depends on lifting the sanctions.
You know, he said the same to Olaf Scholz and Emmanuel Macron. They phoned him after my call. He didn't mention the sanctions when he talked about that he will allow to export the corn out of the harbors on the Black Sea. But you know, the question always is, if you talk to the president of the Russian Federation, is how far we can trust. But I think we have to do different things. So it's like Edward said, Odessa is very important to free. On the other hand, nobody of us knows how long does it take. The world needs the corn now. So we have, I think, to do parallel things. Okay. And we have to try to find out if he is really a partner when in the question of bringing out the corn or not. So
yeah, but how to find that out?
I think, you know...
Because this is a very high price to pay if you're testing, seeing whether there is trust or not, and if that doesn't work, the price gets...
No question of sanctions in the question of bringing out the corn. I think this must be important in this theme. I think we need the United Nations. Yeah, the Secretary General now is trying his best, and let's see how far we can go.
Prime Minister, your take on
Well,
this?
I think the sanctions should not be definitely a question of whether he will free the port or not. This is a separate issue. This is totally separate issue. It's because of his aggression. So, and even, I mean, there is totally separate issue. So we have to push the room. That's why I say we need other partners that will come into the room and will push the sides aside and say, well, it's not about trading between the EU and Russia. What do you trade? And that's what opens the space. There is security of other partners who come in and say, okay, because right now this is you two partners, you cannot, and we are not actually negotiating. There is not really any negotiations happening. Because Vladimir Putin is not allowing those negotiations with anybody. He's not negotiating. We have to realize he's not negotiating. He's performing his plan. I didn't see any sign of hope that he would be negotiating. So we need to free the port by third force that will allow the security as an arbiter, and that's how we can get the grain. And we have to do it parallelly as we get the grain on the green lines as well, because we have to do every scenario. We cannot choose, okay, let's put all the coins on one scenario. All the scenarios we can make together, we have to do at the same time, because only then we can succeed. It's such a difficult situation. There is so little answer at this moment, so many questions, but only if we work hard and we look for new answers together, then we'll be able to succeed.
My name is Pavel Demeš. I am Slovak foreign policy analyst and would like to ask you, Chancellor, a question which will be a bit personal about you and Vladimir Putin. So do you have special relations to Vladimir Putin?
No, I don't have any special relations to him, but I think it's necessary also in conflicts to talk to both sides. When I decided to go first to Ukraine, afterwards to President Putin, I talked about that with the President of the Commission, with the President of the Council, with the Chancellor of Germany, with the President of Poland, because he's one of the strongest critics about that. And, well, when I was there, I saw a man who is in his own war logic. Before I go to Moscow, I was in Bucha, and so it was the first time in my life when I saw a mass grave. And I think it was necessary and it was right to confrontate him with that. I think it's necessary to talk not only with a phone call, it's only necessary, to look each other into the eyes. And the Austrian position is really new now because in former times we always or often declared because of our neutrality it's not possible to do that or the other things. Now we are really clear. We decided all sanctions. We support the delivering of ammunition and weapons. We can do it ourselves, but we support it. I told it before, we don't have time. We have to find solutions now. And it's really a big question, what does this mean for the security in Europe? I will tell you something. We are in a special position in Austria, more than Slovakia is. Now we protect more than 75,000 Ukrainians. And in the same time, I have 21,000 asylum seekers from all over the world, Syria, Afghanistan, 21,000 now. You know what does this mean for the end of the year? So it's a security question. What does it mean if there is hunger in the world? If North Africa is destabilized? And so I think it's necessary here to share all informations, and everyone has to do more that this war ends. First of all, Putin. And we all have to try to push him, to bring him to this, to say, stop, not anymore.
Prime Minister, briefly, your conclusion.
Well, we see, even with this discussion, that we are facing bigger and bigger challenges. I'm not saying problems, because we have to look at this as challenges. But what we see is also the importance of forums like this, because this forum actually opened two big topics. It opened the topic of reconstruction of Ukraine, which we thought that's going to be the final discussion we'll have. War in Ukraine and then reconstruction. Now we see it's getting much bigger, and we still might not see some things that will come afterwards. Because we saw energy, now we saw war, and now we're starting to see famine, which is a global problem. So it's very good that we started to speak about the reconstruction, because very much needed for the European dimension. But the global dimension that was opened on this forum must sound, and we need forums like this, where people from all over the world get together, put themselves into seeking solutions, and bringing answers to the challenges. Quickly, comprehensively, that's our task. So I think the next year we're going to see many forums like this, where we have to be very serious about it, because the forums in the past were more like discussion and we're thinking of a vision. Now we are building vision while we live it. That's a totally different dimension. So that's why thank you also to this forum, and thank you to you,
thank you.
that you opened these important questions to us, but you heard it as well. Let's look for the solutions together, and let's involve much more global players into it.
Thank you so much. I want to thank the speakers. Thanks so much for being here for this session. Thanks for your view, and from all of us here in the room and also streaming. Thank you very much, Chancellor, Prime Minister.
Thank you.